Hi, I'm Nancy Bergman, and we are down here in one of the twin cities of Trempealeau County. We are down in Pine Creek, and we're going to be looking at a really interesting place down here, Sacred Heart Church. And my co-host Mary, she's not here today. She's our half Norwegian, half Polish girl. Well, she's home. She's got this condition called habitosis, where your feet swell up and get real hairy. But hopefully, she'll be back to normal soon. Okay. So who do I have with me today? To my right, I have...
Jim Lisinski.
Okay, where are you from, Jim?
Right here.
Right here.
right from the Twin Cities here.
Okay. And then right here?
Paul Jurassic.
Okay. And you a part of Jurassic Farms?
Yep, in Pine Creek, yep.
Okay.
And Becky Koldunsky.
And you're named after the hill?
Yes, yes.
There's a hill between Pine Creek and Dodge that's called Keldunsky Hill, is what I've been told.
Oh, you must have been told wrong.
Oh.
I always get called Dodge Hill, so.
Dodge Hill. Okay.
And think of it as
There's a Koldunsky Street.
Okay, maybe that's what we're thinking. And we have...
My name is Joe Hughes. I'm from Racine, Wisconsin, but I'm proud to say that I have actually backed my car down Dodge Hill. I did it 2 months ago.
Why?
Because there was a giant pothole right up in the middle, up at the top, and there was one way down, and it was backwards.
Okay, so these are all our creds. And we're going to be talking today. We're going to start out talking. We've got this whole thing all laid out here that Jim's got ready for us. And one of the first ways that people got into this area, if they were coming from Tamarack or Centerville, where was that?
They came through Whistle Pass.
Okay.
And with Martin Whistler, he settled in 1855. But most of the history you know from Pine Creek came from a few people that wrote some books. And we're lucky here because we've been asked to do something here about the church. And a little over 10 years ago, they wrote a book, which Becky has here. And these three people did a lot of research to get this book put together, and they compiled pictures, a lot from Becky's relation, Eleanor and Wally Craich. I said, my generation kind of remembers those people quite well. And I said, they compiled this nice book, and I believe probably about the only place you could probably find one yet is the Historical Society. I don't know if there's any left here in the parish.
This is a beautiful book. It's beautiful, yeah.
It's a wonderful book. We've got a lot of pictures that we'll probably supplement into this little video today, which came out of this book. So I said, if anybody's interested, don't be afraid to contact the parish here and get yourself a copy, because there's a lot of history compiled into a small amount of pages. With the research and everything they've done, Becky did most of the editing on it. So I said, we're really thankful that we could sneak them in here today kind of on short notice.
Yeah, but there are copies for sale.
Yes, there are.
Okay. And it's a beautiful book. It really is. I've seen a lot of books that are put together for, anniversaries and things, but this one is really nice and it's really interesting.
It's only $25, is that correct? I mean, that's a steal.
Well, when Martin Whistler settled in 55, that was the first influence of Europeans into the area. And as they started coming, one of the first things that people did, one, they looked for a place for worship. They had to have some place, a church is a sense of community. So maybe at first it was just a random minister would come along and he would have in maybe someone's home or even underneath some large shade tree. But by 1862, we know that there was a church standing on Roy Hesley Farm, which was the Chisholm Farm, and there were people going to that church. And in 1862, the first church in Pine Creek was built on top of the hill. That one was consecrated in 64. And then, unknowns to me, the year, it burnt down. And I tried to do some research, we couldn't find out which. And they rebuilt the second church in the same place. And that church lasted for many years until the parish outgrew the size of it, which comes up to having to build a new church underneath the direction of Father Alphonse Snigorsky, yes.
Snigorsky.
Whatever his name was, yes.
Snigorsky?
Yes.
Okay, well.
Snigorsky. Anyhow, underneath his direction, they put an ad in the Winona paper looking for a contractor to build a church here in Pine Creek. And on May 8th, that contract was awarded to Dennis Collins. And it was for
An Irishman built this Polish church.
$10,650, which would be about $300,000 in today's money. So he hired a subcontractor, Benjamin Grimshaw, where your Irishman probably comes in, and he helped build this church. One of the stipulations of that contract was that it had to be done by the 20th of December, and the contract was issued the 8th of May. Well, the 21st of November, they had the dedication of this church. It was built in just a little over 6 months.
Wow.
With no power tools, no lighting, nothing. So I said it was a phenomenal amount of work for these people to do.
Yeah.
And also while they were doing this, I said the cemetery was growing, there are other records are being done. And they made a few rectories in here. But I think you've got a few words to mention about the rectories.
Well, the rectories, that was where the minister, the priest lived. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And there had been, like you said, 3 of them at least?
4 of them are here. Yeah, the first rectory, I said, burnt down. They had another rectory, maybe burnt. We're not positive how many there were. But in December 28, 1878, the rectory burned down and the church roof caught on fire.
This church?
This church.
Oh my
It
God.
was built in 75. But they made that fire out. That was listed in Winona paper. Then History of Trempealeau County also states in 1882 the rectory burned right to the ground again. So I said, we know that the rectories have went down. How many of the records for the cemetery have been lost?
Yeah,
We're
I
not
suppose.
positive. We don't know. So I said the land itself, I said, was donated by Joe Libra. He's buried in St. Mary's Cemetery in Winona now. And on that land, they built the school and the rectory. The sisters' convent was there. There was a utility shed, a few other buildings. The first school was built around 1890, 1891. It only was $3,000, but at that time, that was like $100,000.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
And there were 50 students. By 1909, they expanded the school because they were up to about 200 students.
Wow.
So I said the community was really expanding, starting to grow. They went from St. Wenceslaus over this time. It changed over to Sacred Heart.
Well, let's talk about why that happened.
That's not my problem. I'm
It isn't?
going to hand that off to Joe.
All right, Joe.
Maybe talk about some of the early influence of some of the people.
Yeah, why was it first called St. Wenceslaus?
Yeah, I can probably speak something to that. The original quote-unquote settlers of Pine Creek and Dodge and all of this were Yankees and, people from the eastern United States who kind of headed west because they didn't like it here. I don't know what their problem was. But the Polish people and the Bohemian people over across the river in Winona had been saving up. Some of them had been saving up to buy farmland. And they all kind of descended upon the Pine Creek area. They found out there's land in Whistler's Pass. There's land in Pine Creek. And Bohemians and Poles started buying land across the river and moving.
Well, Bohemians today would be Czechs, is that correct?
Yeah, and I grew up calling them Czechs down in my native Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But they call them Bohemians in Winona. I call them whatever they want to be called.
Okay.
But basically, yeah, it was called St. Wenceslaus. When they first started the faith community, as Jim pointed out here, there would be a traveling priest coming through, but nobody knew when. And they had to. It was an important part of their Polish and Bohemian, really, Catholic faith, that they had to get together on Sunday and really, worship in some way. They would say the litany together. They would say the rosary. They would sing. And when there was a priest, then they would have Mass. In 1862, they really did come up with the first church here. It was called St. Wenceslaus. Why? I don't know. Maybe the Polish said, okay, we'll call it after St. Wenceslaus. But it was St. Wenceslaus up until the time, I think, when they started building this church here. Mm-hmm. And most of the money that was being raised, such as it was, $100,000 back then, these people were desperately poor. The money was, I guess, thinking on the Polish side. And that's why it is Sacred Heart and St. Wenceslaus.
Okay.
And he definitely gets second billing, but it was originally St. Wenceslaus.
Was Saint Wenceslas, was he the guy in like the Christmas Carol?
That's him.
That's him. Okay. Okay. So first it was Saint Wenceslas, and then it became Saint Wenceslas Sacred Heart.
/ Sacred Heart. That's correct.
Okay.
And the early settlers here, I said, we've had a number of parishioners that have gone to the religious faith as far as administering it. I mean, sisters, I'm not even sure the number of sisters, but there had to be, 20, 30 girls probably went to the sisterhood.
Oh yeah, then like the famous Glowatsky family that we were just talking about out there before the show. There were 5 Glowatsky sisters who entered the sister. They were Stevens Point teaching sisters.
Oh.
Franciscan teaching sisters from Stevens Point. And so yes, they really did have a lot of priestly vocations as well. So this has been a real engine here for vocations.
I think a little later on we'll get a few photographs of the cemetery. We have a few priests buried in the cemetery, and there's a few more that are kind of looking for a spot one day. So I said it's kind of a popular place as far as, supporting the religious faiths,
Yeah. I was just commenting to Becky, you can really feel the Polish every time you come into this church. You really can.
Well, I think maybe at this time, maybe we should go with Becky here and we'll kind of look at maybe the windows and a few things here in the church, or talk a few things about the statues, because she knows a little bit, and we'll try to keep it down. There's going to be mass later today, so.
Well, we'll be out of here by then. Yeah, we'll keep moving. All right. Now we're inside the church here, and it's beautiful, as you can see, and it's, have they done any big renovations here, or is it pretty much the way it's normally been?
We had renovations that started in 2010 in preparation of the 150th anniversary that we were doing. So there was, the wainscoting was started and donated by Woleski family using their lumber from their farm. And then there was painting schemes that went through several different committees to figure out what we should do. And there was a window up on the choir loft that was uncovered from the backside so that you could actually see the windows. So we can probably show that later. And then the big thing was all the scaffolding in the church. And during that time, we had to have mass down in the basement.
Okay. Now, these windows that are in here, they're beautiful. Do you know about how old they are?
Well, they would all came in at the same time as the church was being built.
So back in the 1870s, 1880s, Jim?
1870s.
Yeah, 1875,
Yeah, okay.
Early 1880s. They had to put windows in, I suppose, before you let too many people in.
Yeah, and it could be that the windows were, installed at different times. There were windows, but
Yeah, I never did the research to look at the names. Each one has a donor.
right.
And to check if the name would correspond with the date that the church was built, or if the name was later.
I've tried to do that, and I keep forgetting. But now I guess I'm going to have to go back and do that again because.
And most of them are in Polish. You can't read them. Maybe Becky can, but I'm not.
No, I can. No, I can. I'll accept that assignment, Jim.
Okay. So these are all the pictures of the people in the windows. Are these various saints? Is that what they
various
are?
saints, and then the square window that's below it is who donated towards that window.
Okay. And I don't know a whole lot about stained glass, but I've heard that trying to get the colors like that bright cobalt blue and red is not easy, and it was very expensive, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, I don't think we have any information about the cost of the windows or where they came from.
They were pretty astronomical, the cost, because this isn't, something that they slapped together, in a garage, in Centerville. That one there was donated by Jacob Kaldunsky.
Right.
There you
And,
go.
um,
A relative.
That one would be, I was just looking that up yesterday, it would be 3 times great-grandfather.
Okay, and these are people who you talk about the faith in this church. These are people who didn't have a lot of money, and the Kaldunsky family thought it was important to make this contribution to this church here. And yeah, it probably was then pretty much original. I just know that they had to, it cost enough money to build the building, and they were able to furnish it as finances allowed, I'm guessing.
And the windows now have been, I believe, resealed and reset.
Yeah, I thought they had to re-lead them.
I think they were maybe re-leaded. I know we had one done at the museum. It was like $20,000, you know, I mean.
Yeah.
There's very few companies that still work on stained glass windows.
And the funny thing is, a lot of them are some of them are based in Winona.
Yes.
This is the altar up here. Was that original to the church, do you know, when they first?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so, yes.
No,
Yeah.
Becky's got the
Yeah.
pictures to prove
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And that looks like a lot of wood carving. Was that done around here, or do you know anything about who made it? It's really ornate.
I don't think there's much history written down. I said, how many times have I said we have to document? It wasn't documented, so we're not positive. I know you paid church pew rent, and that was your pew. If somebody sat in your pew, there were sometimes little family feuds because that's my bench. I rented that bench.
And it was a status symbol too. The closer you were to the front, the more important you were.
Yeah.
But like I said,
Yeah,
each one
I'm
of the
sure.
benches depicts a different saint. Each one of the windows has a different saint. And we give Becky a quick run, and she'll maybe kind of tell us who each one is.
And who is the guy here with the military? Oh, he's got what is he standing on? An alligator? Huh? A dragon. Wow.
No, it looks more like an alligator.
We don't have too many of those in Pine Creek, I don't think. Well, that's interesting. I've never seen one like that before.
St. George.
This one.
With the
Yeah,
has-
St. George and the Dragon.
Yeah, and it's a Roman soldier.
Sure. Okay. And did we find out who this one is in the Kaldutsky window?
I think it's St. Andrew.
St. Andrew?
I could be wrong,
Saint-
but that might have been...
St. James.
Oh, St. James the Great.
St. James.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take it back. I'll stand correct.
Okay. Now, looking up here, this is what, the choir loft?
And the window that was uncovered is behind that.
Okay. And why was it covered?
I'm not really sure what they did in the building. Maybe it was something to do with the heat rising up and
That's beautiful, though. The colors are really pretty. Yeah.
That was uncovered
Yeah.
during the renovation.
And then the statues around the
The
Stations of the Cross. Okay.
And there's an interesting story about that was uncovered by Ann Pulaski when we were talking to her in preparation of the anniversary, and she said that she came across a letter or a crate that Father Gara had ordered the Stations of the Cross, and then when it came, which I don't know if it was the first station that came or if they all came together, but it wasn't what they had ordered. And this is the result of that mistake. There's so much bigger stations than what was ordered.
Oh.
But because of the cost of sending it back was too great to do,
They just kept it.
we kept it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty good deal then.
So it was a nice gift
Yeah.
from somebody that we don't know who it was.
Yeah.
Made a mistake. I believe there was a personal stone over for Drugans or something there. Remember that in that story by Trempealeau? There was somebody supposed to be buried in Trempealeau, the old Catholic cemetery.
Uh-huh.
And when she passed away, they ordered a stone, and when it came in, they couldn't afford the shipping. So the Drugans there, something with Drugans Golf Course, left-hand relation, right side or
Yeah.
left, they kept the stone till you come up with the shipping, and I think they still have that stone sitting someplace in Trempealeau. It's they never paid the shipping, so the poor lady never did get her stone.
Oh, dear.
But, well, like I said, there's a few statues here by each one of these memorials, or each altar. Peter and Paul are on this one, and St. Joseph. I'm not even, one of those is St. Wenceslas.
St. Wenceslas is on the left, the
St.
one
Wenceslas is on the west.
on the left with the shield and the sword that he is holding.
Oh, one of the statues.
Yeah.
Oh, no, up there.
Yeah,
I
the
see.
statues.
Oh,
Good King Wenceslas himself.
okay. I see it. Okay.
And I believe one of these windows,
And
this
then
one here,
one-
I believe is St. Wenceslas.
Yeah, it is.
Also over here.
Please notice, though, that there is no name
Oh.
under this one.
Right. So if it was the parish that maybe paid for it,
Or maybe it never got a buyer. I noticed that this one was offered by this window was donated by Father Andrew Gara,
Okay.
who was a pastor in the late 1890s.
Yes.
So I would imagine that that's kind of suggests that these windows were claimed over time by people.
That's
who were-
highly possible.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that they didn't have them made to order.
And one more thing I would just point out apropos, this one window here was donated, you'll see, by Jan and Francisca Brom, B-R-O-M,
Oh, okay.
which is a Bohemian name.
Yeah.
Actually,
John Brom, yeah.
the Bohemians who came across the river in 1862 with the Winonans and thereafter worshipped in this church some form of St. Wenceslaus, Sacred Heart Parish, but the Mass was, of course, in Latin, but the homilies and the singing was always in Polish. The Bohemians were assimilated.
Oh.
The Bohemians here spoke Polish. The Swiss people here spoke Polish. If you were an Anglo like me, and I stood up and did business over here, I'd better learn to speak Polish
Well,
or
I
I'd
guess so.
go broke. It was the language, and as opposed to Winona, which had this big English-speaking government, everybody here in Pine Creek and Dodge spoke Polish no matter what their background was. Jim
Well,
Siebert,
sure.
who was the Civil War vet, Alsatian French. You had Alsatian French/German people here
Speaking Polish.
who were speaking Polish.
And like you said, John Brum, there had to be fairly influential on this town here and the city due to the fact that there only were about a dozen Bohemians families.
Yeah.
But
The rest were Polish. So, I mean, when they set the first church up at St. Wenceslaus, it had to be a lot of influence on these other people. We're going to name this after a saint that's not a part of your religion, let's put it that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the Poles
Instead
don't
of a
really make
Polish,
a big thing.
Put the name of the church after one of our saints, you know?
Yes,
So
yes.
I says he had to have a lot of pull in the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just fascinating that and there's a Brom headstone up on the hill
Many
there,
of them,
Monica Brom. It's the
Yeah.
one that's in the ground, born 1896, and that's obviously a Bohemian name, but the whole headstone is in Polish.
Oh, okay. So it's pretty strong influence.
Very, very.
Do you want to say a few more words about something here, Becky?
well, I think we should go up over here by those angels that are on the altar, the communion rail. The communion rail has been taken down and brought back several times, but we brought it back again after the renovation that we did in 2012. And then the adoring angels were donated by Dan and Kathy Jurasik, sorry. Yashewski. I'm thinking Jurassic because we have a Jurassic here today.
So what is this over here? Is that for,
We have a baptismal
that's
font
the
there.
baptismal? Okay.
We just had a baptism actually last Sunday in church,
oh, wow.
so it's still used.
And about how big is the congregation now?
I would say we have about 200 families,
Okay, well, that's pretty good.
and our fall festival is coming up in October. It's always
Right.
the first weekend in October, so a great place to come and visit with other people and have a good food.
Oh, good. So, Mr. Jurassic, now you're Polish, you're not Bohemian, right?
Yeah, I'm Polish.
Okay. Well, you seem to think that's funny.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah, I fit in pretty good around here.
Okay, all right. But your family's been here a long time.
Yep.
And the dairy farm has been here a long time too,
Yeah,
right?
since Jacob and Mary Jessica came over about 1871, and they started farming about 1873, and the dairy's still going.
Okay,
We've
that's
added,
pretty good.
We have the dairy is sitting on the original homestead, and then over the years we encompassed some more land, and we're still going strong.
Oh, that's great. And now we should mention here, if people haven't seen some of our other programs, that the Polish people that were down here in the Twin City area were called what, Jim?
Kashubians.
Okay, and why is that?
Couldn't spell it, I don't know.
You know.
Part of Poland they came
Yeah.
from.
What part?
And Kashubia is a region in the northwest of what is now Poland. really the only Polish history a lot of people are ever going to need is that Poland keeps bouncing around on the map, and sometimes it disappears for a century or two. Kashubia is a region in the northwestern part of Poland, close to the Baltic Sea. It's very beautiful, the land is very poor, and the climate is lousy. The Kashubians really had to work very hard to try to make a living there under the domination of the Germans and sometimes of the Polish as well. In the late 1850s, early 1860s, they started coming to North America, and Winona was one of the places they came to. And the Kashubians were all farmers.
Okay.
They wound up in a city of Winona with no money to buy farmland, but their hearts yearned to be farmers. They didn't want to be urban. So they came over here to Trempealeau County.
Now, is it true that the Polish that the Kashubians spoke was a little bit different than what the Silesians up by Independence spoke?
Yeah. Part of the fun of having a country, a nation that bounces all over the map and sometimes disappears, is that it's made up of separate ethnic groups like the Silesians, the Kashubians, the Poznanians, and they've got more. The Poles have about 17 of these things.
Oh my gosh, 17.
And Polish is a language. Kashubian today is recognized as a regional language in Poland. It's the only regional language in Poland. It is a language and not just a dialect like some people say. Silesian usually gets termed a dialect. It could be a language, but basically it's just like speaking with a different accent.
Okay, yeah.
I am still from Wisconsin. My wife was from Tennessee. My family thought she talked funny. Her family thought I was a Yankee.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure. There's a little difference there.
And it's that kind of a difference, if any. It's
Yeah.
like that kind of difference. You married somebody from a different state.
Right, okay. Well, this is great, so why don't we start walking back this way?
Yeah, the church, I says, is the third old Polish community in the United States.
That's what they claim, but I began to wonder.
Remember the other churches?
There's a church over in Polonia, Wisconsin. that's the second.
Milwaukee, isn't
Yes.
it? And then there's one in Texas. I
And Texas, I think, is the oldest
Anna Maria,
one.
Texas. That was
Yeah.
Silesians who came. Yep, the very first. And they came out as a colonizing group and built a town called Panna Maria, and it didn't work. The colony failed, but that's how the very first Silesians
Now
got.
it was in Texas.
That's in Texas.
Being the third oldest church, because
Okay.
like I said, we have 1854
Yeah.
there, we have the one in Wisconsin from 1857, and then we're 1862.
North Creek was first built in like 1905. It was served out of Pine Creek as a mission.
okay.
They didn't get a formal priest for quite some time.
Well, the first full-time priest here is 1866,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Okay.
said, otherwise it was all done by traveling ministry. And that's where it brings up our cemetery records on the hill here, where the people that were going to church over in Whistle Pass from 1855 to 1862, if someone passed away, what happened to that person? Is he up in our cemetery and the records burnt with the rectory?
Well, you don't know, yeah.
Was he buried on the farm? Did they hold this person until a traveling ministry came along and, hey, we got a guy laying here for a week?
Well, you know, you're up being a member of the Catholic faith, and you just assume that Mother Church has rules for this, and that there is a way of doing things, and the Catholic Church is always really precise about it. Who is the pastor at this church and for how long? This is all very carefully controlled. But back on the frontier, back in the 1850s, the archbishop is down there, the bishop is down there in Milwaukee. He has no clue what's going on up here, no clue whatsoever. Yeah. They just did what they had to do.
Right, and I'm sure, like you say, they were very pragmatic.
That people of faith will find a way to worship, and they will find some appropriate way of handling this, but they were pretty much on their own hook, I'm guessing.
And the early records, even when I talked to Father Altman down in the diocese, Father's gone now, but he said all the records were written as they happened. It could have been a baptismal on Sunday, and Monday maybe administer to the sick, and maybe Tuesday could have been a funeral, and maybe the next Saturday was a wedding. It was as it happened. So you couldn't go and look up all the weddings that happened in 1882 or all the funerals that didn't happen. And then it was written in the languages of the minister. It was either in Czech, or in Polish, or in German.
Or Latin.
And he had to transcribe all these records so that he could come up with the records for the cemetery here. Now I think we should maybe move on a little bit, maybe do a little work on the cemetery here.
Yeah.
Yes, do some work
But
there.
wait, I want to know what this is over here. Oh, what is this now?
So this is Christ in the tomb.
Okay.
And then the risen Jesus is the statue that's above it.
And this is just statuary.
Yes, it is.
Okay. And what is it made out of?
Oh, that I don't know.
Some kind of composite.
kind of
Composite,
It
I would
almost seems
think.
like a fiberglass, but I don't know if it would be. It's possible.
And how,
Some early form of Bakelite or fiberglass.
do you know how old it is?
No,
I don't think we have any.
documentation.
No, there's no record about.
People don't write this stuff down. We can't. We're just guessing. Maybe somebody out there knows who and when this appeared, but I says there's no records that we have on hand that can just spot date who donated, if the parish bought it, an individual gave it to us.
We don't know.
We do have a note in the book that it was donated by Teddy Glinzinski.
Oh,
Okay.
Well,
See now,
And-
now Ted is. I can remember her. I says in her day, so I says it can't be that old.
So maybe 1930s is what we're
Yeah,
kind of
okay.
guessing at.
and then, is this an ear of corn?
yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah.
Cattails, I'm not
I don't know.
supposed to depict
That is, it's really different,
them,
isn't it?
some
I'm
type of a
sorry.
vine work here.
Yeah, here's vines and,
Assuming that this is in the spring.
well, and in a different climate too, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And that statue could have been added, it could have just been imported.
It's really interesting. And what is this back here in the closet? What is this?
That's another baptismal font that was created by Father Stanek. I was actually baptized in that, and Paul was.
But what is this? Is this little stones or? Oh, okay. Huh.
And we'll see some of that same work in the grotto that's outside that was
Okay.
also built by Father Stanek.
Okay. Is there anything else we need to look at in here? Go out.
Left, I said, and the building itself are the bells upstairs, and I
Okay.
don't think we'll go up there, but we do have pictures of them.
Okay. We'll do that.
The windows up
There's
there.
a few windows on
You're welcome to walk up there. if
Where-
you
No
want.
thanks. Up here, and there's another window, and that's from.
And there's a great big one that was covered upstairs. We don't know anything on the organ.
It's old.
No.
It was
no.
refurbished 1948.
Still working, still used every Sunday.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
There was a company that made organs in Fountain City.
Right.
But it didn't say that it made the one for this church. It made the one for the Independence Church
Yeah.
for St. Peter and Paul. That was $10,000.
That's a lot
And
of
the one in
money.
North Creek was $3,000
Yeah.
and made right in Fountain City.
Yeah.
But it didn't
By
say
a-
anything about
yeah,
this church. So
By a Huber. I thought.
I forget the fellow's
Yeah, his name was Huber, and he was a Bavarian. So that was kind of different. All right, let's go outside here, and maybe we'll go up to the top of the hill there where the cemetery is.